Layers of Trust, Art, Healing, and Community. So we're going to be joined by Stacey Russell. Just in this lunchtime conversation, you can continue eating, on how his creative journey from North St. Louis to the canvas explores healing and the power of art to connect communities and build trust. So I will introduce Stacey Russell and our facilitator, Dr. Temi Ojo, as well. So Stacey Russell is a painter and illustrator from Missouri. Growing up in the township of Baden in North St. Louis, Stacey tries to reflect urban life in the rural community through his work. At an early age, Stacey was mentored by his aunts, Carol Jean Williams and Dorothy Russell, who are also artists, and started creating artwork at the age of 2 years old. They taught him all mediums, preparing him to have no limitations or boundaries in expressing his love for art on all levels. He works mostly with acrylic on canvas, airbrush, oil, graphite, charcoal, and more recently, digital graphics. And then our facilitator is Dr. Temi Ojo. She is a public health leader with deep expertise in implementation science and non-communicable disease epidemiology. She serves as the Associate Director at the Light Institute at WashU Medicine, where she leads a large-scale public health portfolio and team. Prior to this, she worked in healthcare strategy and health equity at Boston Consulting Group. She founded NYU's IC Lab and has implementation, research, and training efforts across 7 different countries. She holds a PhD in public health from NYU, an MPH from Yale, and a BA in biochemistry from Mount Holyoke College, and has published extensively on global implementation science. So welcome.
Thank you. Right, welcome Stacey. Thank you for joining us today. Awesome. All right, so again, my name is Temi. Stacey is here with us, so maybe another round of applause for Stacey. So we'll jump right in. Yes, awesome. Okay. First up, could you tell us about your upbringing in North St. Louis and how it has shaped you as an artist?
I grew up in North St. Louis, the Baden area.
The microphone will help.
I thought I had a big mouth. Mom can tell me that. So I moved to the Baden area. I think I was like 2 years old. And during that time, Baden was a close-knit community, but I was always into art. Every child was into art at the time. And so during that time, just any place in the house that had white walls, it was a canvas for me. So I would draw on it, of course, go to this cycle, get a whooping, and but I'm like, hey, if you didn't want to draw on white, y'all keep painting the walls white, So that's at an early age, but had that, that desire for art.
So that's exciting to hear because I can remember some of those memories as a kid, with like my little sibling, and just expressing on all the white walls. I think most parents probably can testify to that.
Just paint them black, Right.
Awesome. Thanks, Stacey. And so, in your bio, we mentioned your aunts having played a powerful role in your artistic journey. So, earlier on when Precious was up here, we talked about mentorship. And so we would like to know, how did their mentorship influence your approach to art? And how has that helped you build trust in your own creative process?
Okay. Like I say, started around that same time. I was a toddler, around 2 to 3 years old, and my aunts, Dorothy Russell and Carol Williams Russell, they were artists, and they used to always make paper dolls for my sister, making different clothes, whatever, I think it's pretty cool. And so when we go visit them down in the country in Southeast Missouri, you know, you ask them,
I'll do it on my
draw me this, you know, and I still, they laugh. They're like, draw me Bugs Bunny. And as they was drawing it, I was duplicating everything it was drawing, you know. She draw Superman and I would draw it. She draw me Bugs Bunny and I would draw it. And like, hold on a second. You draw this, and I draw it. In my mind, think like, hey, everybody in the world can draw, so you can. And so they asked me to, you know, withdraw. I want you to draw me a glass of water. And so there was a spectrum, the rectangle with the line. You know, I drew the cylinder. You know, I drew water inside. And I drew it on the table. And I drew the shadow. They're like, what is that line right there? I said, well, the light is over here, so the shadow got to be on this side. Whatever. You know, at that early age, it was like, okay. Went to my parents, like, okay, Stacey drew this. He's talented, and y'all need to start, you know, so just fessing with this. And so what they did was they would tell me to draw, and give me a pencil. After a while, they take it away and give me an ink pen. I draw, and take it away, and they give me finger paints. I'm like, oh yeah, finger paints, yeah, this is my life right here. I'm the king of finger paints, you know. And they take it away and they give me some more paints. And I'm like, okay, this stuff stinks. I'm like, well, what does it smell like? What does it feel like? I'm like, well, it smells like, you know, my bicycle chain, you know, it smells oily. Like, yes, it's oil paint. And so what you do, you mix this on this thing called a palette. Now I want you to just draw. And they'll take it away, then they give me acrylic. And take it away, then they give me charcoal and whatnot. And so what I didn't know what they was doing, they were just introducing me to all different types of mediums. And so by the time I was 7 years old, I already had like artistic knowledge of high schoolers. I knew, you know, the primary colors, what mix, and that, you know, black, white, gray are not colors and whatnot. And I knew all different mediums I was familiar with. And I started making money in the second grade, you know, with my artwork. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, you know, like you just said, you've worked across many mediums, you know, from canvas to digital. How does each medium allow you to tell different stories or express different forms of healing?
I guess for me, it would be like for the time frame and the subject matter, who I'm doing the artwork for, whatnot. Painting would be probably quicker than for us if I was to do a pencil sketch, because I would do so much detail, and I want to do each, you know, eyelash and whatnot, you know. And so if I'm doing like a specific project, and I wanted to do like for us, like acrylic, like you see, like this one right here, if you press pause, oh, you this one, press pause. This is my little cousin. Her name's Ariel, and she's lived in Texas, right outside Dallas, and she was killed last June. She was in Marines. She was going to drill, and she was, you know, she had a flat tire. She went outside to change it, and drunk driver, you know, killed her. And so, beautiful young lady, whatnot, you know. And so, during that grieving process, you know, my cousin, I was, you know, my parents. I felt that this is one of the things that, you know, I can give to them, you know, hopefully, you know, memorize. And so when I finished it, I drove it from here, you know, to Dallas and gave it to him. And so her dad, Lawrence, he was like, he said, I only told my wife this. He said, but I prayed to God, I said, Lord, I know you don't do this, but I at least want to see my daughter one more time. So he had a dream. He said, Stacey, she had on a white dress. She had like a white shawl wrapped around her. She's in this field. And this angel told me, like, no, you can't see her. Don't look yet, don't look yet. And I was behind these clouds and whatnot, you know. And he said, okay, let you look. And and she was just running in the field with other people and whatnot, and they gave me peace. And so I gave him this, a field, blue shawl was kind of cut off, whatever. But he was looking at the top left corner and everything. He said, "Yo, that's where the angel is." He said, "Were you trying to draw an angel?" I'm like, "Dude, I'm drawing clouds," you know. So, you know, but it was that healing process. He, you know, when he showed his wife,
Yeah.
she was like, "Yo, that's that dream you just told me about last month." And so, if my artwork can be a part of that healing process, amen. I'm cool
Amen
with
to
it,
that.
you know.
Yeah.
And so, like I say, whatever it takes.
Mhm.
And so, like, go back to the different mediums, whatnot. I'm gonna say I rushed it and everything, but I knew the time frame I was gonna go from here to Dallas to give it to him, whatnot. So, like, I need it done within that period of time with acrylic. Because the schedule probably took long, you know. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you. So, in talking about the reoccurring theme of the festival this year for us at the Light Institute has been about trust. And so, we want to know, like, what does restoring trust mean to you? How do you see that theme show up in your heart, in your relationship with community?
Me personally, I think that, like, put that in parallel with public health. I see that parallels with for it being tangible, you know. I believe a lot of people look at public health as a system, you know, and so that system is nothing that for which you can grab, you know. I kind of want to go back to everybody familiar with Little House on the Prairie,
Yeah.
Doc Baker. And Doc Baker is one thing that made it personable. Everybody knew Doc Baker, but he did house calls. And it's totally different when the doctor comes to your home and check on you, rub your head and whatnot, and says, you know, talk to the parents, say, hey, you don't supposed to be eating this, you don't supposed to be drinking this. Or he sees you, you know, throughout the town, and he's like, hey, put your shoes on. You know what happens when you run around with no shoes on, you're gonna get sick and whatnot. So that's that personal, tangible type of thing, you know. And so me parallel that with my artwork is totally different if I made a whole bunch of Xerox copies and just spread them out, just put them on the wall and whatnot. You know, oh yeah, I did that. Oh yeah, I did that. I did that and everything. But it's not a story behind it. You know, it's nothing for us that I can share with you. Relate. Each person wants to know their story, and they may even have their own personal story when they see it, and that's fine. You know, but let me just tell you my motivation behind that. You know, and I think that's where that trust comes in, especially with, you know, for public health. We want we trust in this individual with our information, our life, our health, and we would be more comfortable doing that with the individual and not a system.
Yes.
You know, and so I don't think I ever saw an episode of Little House on the Prairie when Doc Baker asked for it, you know, insurance card or anything. So, I may be wrong, but yeah.
No, that's a very that's something to really think on, is how we are perceived, right? As a public health expert, and I know a couple of people in the room also are in that space of public health research, but also thinking about if you were in the community, because we are also community members at the same time, but also being able to wear that shoe more often and view the work that we do through this lens.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So to add on to that, say, you know, in communities, you know, talking about communities that have been historically underserved or disconnected from public health systems, how do you think art can help rebuild trust and foster conversations and dialogues about that?
I'm gonna be honest, I don't know. Me personally, what I would try to do is that and it may sound like goofy or something like that, you know, but it's when you go into any doctor's office, when you go into any hospital, especially the children's hospital, whatnot, Mercy, it has to be welcoming. It has to be, you know, for us, that ambiance has to be there. You're there for a reason, whether it's for a negative, positive checkup, whatnot, but that ambiance in there has to be welcoming. And one of the things they use is art. You know, they have it on the walls, and it's specific kinds, you know, of art. You know, of course, they don't have no drag racing, you know, in the middle of, you know, the lobby or anything like that, whatever. You know, but I think that for us, whether it's a painting, whether it's a sculpture, anything like that, is for welcoming, and it's even, I find it's even more awesome when you find this art coming from children, or a child, whatnot, you know. You'll just see that handprint up there, you know, they made it out of a leaf and they put their name on it and it's up there, you know, hey, that's cool, you know. So.
I mean, the children's hospital has some art and sculptures around. Like you would know you are at St. Louis Children's Hospital, just you know, driving into like the emergency entrance too.
Yeah, yes,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and I think we all can attest to that for us growing up, and we had our macaroni art. We gave it to mom, she put it on their refrigerator, you know. And Lord forbid that she forget, you know, like, why you didn't put the macaroni art? Okay, I'm gonna do it, baby. But fine, leave it there, you know. But when can I take it down? Like, you're in the 9th grade. Can I take it down now? You know?
That's important, right? Like that also diverse representation of whose art is shown up there and how that connects to the community.
Most definitely.
So to ask now is to say, how has your work ever sparked dialogue or shifted someone's perspective on community, healing, or trust? Can you share a moment that stands out?
Yes. Let me see. If you can go to the next slide, let me see. Right here, you pause. Okay, this particular painting is called Hold Still. And that's my daughter when she was 2 years old. That's my heart. And her name is Stacey Russell. So if you was to ask Asia when she was 2, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? She would say, I don't want to be anything. I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be a pediatrician. They're like, oh, that's so cute. Do you know what a pediatrician is? Yes, it's a baby doctor. That's what I'm going to do. So that's my baby girl. And the woman to the right represents her ancestors. Her great-grandmother, great-great-grandmother, whatnot. And what she's doing, she's preparing her, or she's doing her hair. Most of the women here probably remember how your mom used to do your hair, grandmother, whatnot. But what she's doing is she's preparing her. Not only just doing her hair, but preparing her. She's saying, hold still. Be still. And you notice she has the chain around her neck. I don't know if y'all can see that from here. So you see the chain? Yeah, right here. So what she's saying is, I would go through slavery. I would go through trying to escape. I would take the lashes from getting caught. I would go through civil rights. I would go through Jim Crow. I will go through for drinking out the black water fountain, so you don't have to. I would do whatever it takes for you to be a pediatrician. So that's why you see the chain goes down, but it doesn't connect to my daughter. In the background, you see the plantation. The plantation is something that my daughter would never, ever have to witness or experience. Behind her ancestors, you see the college, university, something that they would never experience. And so this is testament to not only my daughter, but to anyone who's witnessed this or sees it or experienced it. You're gonna go through trials and tribulations. You're here. somebody went through so much for you to be here. And whatever you're going through, having a bad day at work, I mean, you lose your job, 2 words, hold still, hold still.
Thank you. That is deeply moving. Thank you.
Oh, and I'm sorry. And my daughter, she's pre-med at Georgia State University as we speak right now.
So, still on trust. We know trust can be broken, has been broken, but it can also be reimagined. So what helps you reimagine, rebuild trust, either in your arts, community, or daily life?
I think sports just being personable. Uh, like through my art, I tell other artists, it doesn't matter if they draw or whatever medium they're in, if they're a sculptor or whatnot, you can't mess up. It's impossible. Of course, you know, we want to be our worst critic and whatnot, you know, but other people look at it and they just, you know, love it, whatever. But we see the imperfections in it. And so a lot of times, therefore, I've cut myself short, you know, for it's not trusting the process, but trusting the individual when they say, oh man, you know, can I buy that? You know, or can I paint this up? And I'm like, I just see the imperfections, trying to be a perfectionist. And I'm like, no, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. You know, and so it's like a sign of course disrespect. Per se, I look at it that for, you know, God gave me this talent. And I'm doing it for the love and not for the money, but there's somebody else that actually appreciates it.
Yeah.
You know, trust them enough to let them or share with others, whatever you want to do with it, or you know, display it and whatnot. And so, and you find that with not only for you know, oil paints or anything like that, but many of us have driven different cities and see graffiti, and you slow down your car to look at that, and you're like, oh man. Other people look at it like, I can't believe they defacing this building and everything, but you know, no, that's dope. You know, that is nice, you know. And one man's junk is another man's treasure, you know.
Yes.
And so just have to, you know, just trust that process and trust individuals that that respect your art. Even if it's poetry, even singing, you know, I can't carry a note in the bucket, whatnot. I would even try to, you know, but I appreciate that portion of art, whatnot and stuff, you know. So I think that for us, that's what I try to, you know, try to do, you know, with my work, you know, bring people together, comfort people, make individuals think.
Yeah.
It's never, you know, trying to tear down. Of course, I can make a nice mural of race from riot. Okay, so what's the end result from that? You know, and so yeah. So I think that trust. That's one of the ways that, of course, trust in my work.
Thanks for sharing that. And you know, just to reiterate, it's almost like a personal exercise of trusting again and giving space for people to engage you in that process as you then reimagine how to trust.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So we're coming up to our last question, which is, and you know, we would love to end on a message of hope here. And so, what gives you hope when thinking about the future of your community and the role of artists in building that future?
I would say probably the pinnacle for me was, I don't know if a lot of people here in this room know the history of St. Louis. when a storm came through, and it went right straight through North St. Louis. And you see these homes torn down and whatnot, you know, and going back to the history of St. Louis, when I was living in Atlanta, I was in Atlanta from like 92, and I just moved back in 2019. Atlanta has a section that's a historical district, or sections that's a historical district, and other cities have it. St. Louis, the whole entire city is a historical district. And we don't think about that because we just drive by the same empty building, the same house, the same closed down factory and whatnot. But it got told on when that storm came through. And what happened? Those freaking bricks that they are stacking up, you know what I mean? And they stack them up for a reason. Reason being because you cannot find those bricks nowhere. In I think it was Dogtown alone. Dogtown had 250 factories that made bricks, just in Dogtown alone back then. And so throughout the whole city, I mean, hundreds of factories making bricks. So many bricks, they made homes, they shipped them out to different cities. They lined them, the whole entire streets in St. Louis with the bricks. That's why when you get a pothole, you see the asphalt, you look under, you see the bricks lined up. Yeah, we had that many bricks. If you Google it, you'll actually see black and white photos of them actually laying the streets, you know, with these bricks. So when the storm came through, a lot of people, you know, they just looked at it like, oh, I lost Big Mama house, you know, 3 generations lived here and whatnot and stuff, you know. But it's totally different. Even that closed down house that was a crack house and whatnot, sound structure, it didn't fall over and whatnot. But it's kind of funny, when those things do get knocked down, people come out the woodwork just to give those bricks and it's gone. So that is art to even just make those type of brick. You can't do it no more. You know? And so that hope is like a message to us, is that for us, but we, especially if you were born and raised here, you still live here and whatnot, we give us hope is that for that's not only value in you, but it's value in your city. But now we just need outsiders to remind us what the value is, you know. But now you see people you don't even know that they will visit any other time, but they inquire about for that house that tore down or whatnot, you know. And so our city may look different this time next year, you know. But it's an awesome city, you know, and I think that for us, sometimes it takes certain tragedies to kind of wake us up, you know, to let us realize, wake us up what we really have, you know. And so I encourage everybody here, like when you leave here, you see an empty building, you see an empty home, just slow down, look at the architecture, the edges of those bricks, the window seals or whatnot. You can't find that nowhere, you know. Don't mean to be long-winded, but like in Baden, or on Broadway, used to be Baden Bank. Baden Avenue and Broadway. Awesome building. I'm looking at that, man, it was Greco, you know, architecture. And anybody in this room can buy it for $40,000. In Atlanta, it's be a minimum of $300,000, and it's been closed, and that bank's been closed since the early '80s. You know, and so that's what we're driving by. But there's still hope within our city and whatnot. You know, and so we just sometimes we stop and smell roses, and sometimes just stop and just take a look at at our buildings.
Oh, hold still.
Or just hold still.
Yeah.
Amen. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Stacey. And do we get to have questions from the audience? Alexis?
Maybe
One
like
question?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So if anyone from the audience has questions for Stacey, maybe one or two before we wrap up. Awesome.
I know that you have a beautiful young girl doing great things. And a lot of times we have conversations that intersect in regards to our Black males in the community. How have you harnessed conversations for Black men or young men to sit in a safe space with you surrounded around your art? Or have you thought about it?
Yes, because I didn't mention it, but I'm a school teacher. Yeah, I teach at Johnson Wabash School in Ferguson, Florissant, and the whole school is 6th grade center. And so a lot of look at me as Coach Russell or whatnot, and when they found out I can do art and whatnot. Boys are really impressionable, and they try to, like, man, I can draw too, this and that. I'm like, just stay in your lane. I mean, I love you regardless. You have to be art. But I try to find out what are you good at, what is your passions. And so whether it's sports or whatnot, what I try to do is make a blueprint for each young man. I do for all students, but especially for our young men. One young man, he had a different hybrid of ADHD. And he couldn't sit still. He was running, running back and forth, whatnot, and he was disrupting the class. So they sent him to me. And so he swept the floor, he cleaned window seals, stuff like that. And Mr. Russell, son, just chill for a second. So I called his mom. I said, can I have him wash my truck? He's like, yeah. I said, I'll pay him. I give him $40, And so he washed it, but when he finished, you would thought that I took it to the most prestigious detailer. I mean, the rims and everything, sparks, shiny and stuff, and he was just like, what does it need to do? I'm like, boom, gotcha. So, using him, and let's just be honest, college for what? You get that? But if I was to start a corporation, I would have him as the quality control manager.
come on now.
Because what happens is he sees things at a different light, and he sees everything for a detail. So I would have him structure my company that all the rest of the employees have to follow. You know what I'm saying? And he would be a good manager and a good supervisor. You know what I'm saying? Yes, he'll get on their nerves and everything, but he will be right every single time. So that same teacher that put him out, I said, but can he straighten up the room for a second? While you're on lunch, yeah, I can, it'll straighten out. Don't touch this, don't touch it, whatever. He's like, yes, ma'am. So when she came back, he moved her desk in the corner and had all of the desks in a stadium-style seating, to where she sit at her desk, she grab her books, she can grab her stuff this way, and she can see every student, and she was just blown away. Like, you have to do this? I'm like, I didn't do nothing. I just let the boy in the room and let him do his thing and everything. So who has a man like that? So now y'all tell me who's special and who's not. You get what I'm saying?
The moral of the story
The
is.
moral of the story. You get what I'm saying? And so going back to with our Black young men and whatnot, just our students, our male students. Me personally, now I wish the education system do this. Make a blueprint for each individual student, because, like, for us, my son That's a picture up here. He was had my grandson over his shoulders and everything. He loved outdoors. He loved outdoors, animals and whatnot. Don't like college, don't like school. And I'm like, that's cool. That's fine. But if he wants to work for, let's say, fish and wildlife, you got to take college courses and everything. But other than that, some trade school or mentorship under somebody taking on his wing and whatnot, you know, and you're not wasting time and you're not wasting energy and anything. And each person has it, and that's why I just always love about boys mentorship. It's not a hit and miss. That blueprint is right on point. I was blessed to have my two aunts. My daughter, she's blessed, but as she was coming up, when she go get a checkup, her pediatrician went to her church.
Mm-hmm.
So when she go get her checkup, Dr. Flowers would say, okay, I'm about to go test your heart. Go get the instrument. And she go get it, and she put on her first and said, now listen to your heart. What is that first beat? What is this? You know, I'm about to check your blood pressure. What is that top number? What is that bottom number? So is it good or bad? You know, every child needs that. You know, just need that blueprint. You know? So hopefully we get to that again. That's my thing. If your child is around me, I'll try to, just pick their brain, whether it's Cub Scouts, military, or anything like that. You know?
So I recently learned about the statues by the soccer stadium honoring Milk Creek Valley. Like you said, the city's very historical and oftentimes really the blueprint of like all Midwestern cities and stuff, how it's set up like racially and I guess geographically and stuff. But I was just wondering how you felt about projects like that, what it says to the community, and then also if you had anything like in the works similar to like honor the history of St. Louis and stuff like that. Just wondering about your personal projects.
Personal projects. Well, if most of these personal projects for me personally, and deal with the city, what I try to do is, that's my awesome son, my grandson, right there. So, but let's just say if you wanted me to do a portrait of you, fine. I say take a picture, send it to me, or I take one myself. But what I would do is I would put you in a different background, the foreground, your background would be different, and it would be something from St. Louis. You know, this is my friend from Atlanta. But the background is a house that I just saw on Wabata.
Mm-hmm.
I was driving back, just snapped a picture, whatnot. And so I'm leaving a fingerprint of St. Louis wherever I go, whatnot. Kind of sort of like for us with that the statue you was talking about. And I try to recognize the rich history of St. Louis smack dab in the middle of the United States, you know, instead of us influencing other cities like we did in the past with the blues, jazz. If you want to get work, everybody would come to St. Louis, you know, gateway to the west. You had to go through St. Louis, you know, whatnot. But like now, it's like our city is influenced by others. You know, how many people, if I show hands, don't anybody say, "Oh, we're going on vacation. We're going to St. Louis." Nobody. You know what I mean? You know, people from St. Louis try to go elsewhere. You know, what do we got? Barbecue, the arts, the zoo. That's it. You know, and so that statue is like, I look at it as a pilot light. You know what I mean? It's that spark, you know? And so we can go back to our original identity of what the city is about. No, it has nothing to do with the crime. No, it has nothing to do with Forest Red Line. No, it has nothing to do with for the disease control, none of that. St. Louis, they say we're rich, and so I think it's awesome when I see works like that. Not sculpture and everything, but I have my little things I try to leave my fingerprint and whatnot. So even somebody buy it in Louisiana, Pittsburgh, yeah, you got a piece of St. Louis in your home. So.
One more? Okay, one more.
Hi, good morning. My question is pretty simple. So, in the age of AI and technology and all that, what role does art have in preserving the stories that you just told? And what's the best way to go about it? Because it seems like things are changing very quickly globally. Your art looks like they're beautiful, by the way. They look very digital. I don't know if they are, digital or some other media. But I'm kind of trying to imagine what role does digital art, AI art, and technology have in preserving the stories that you've, tried to tell.
Well, all of these are acrylic. For as AI and digital, I'm learning how to. Being that for us, they have now certain programs that for us, instead of me having to buy paint, you use your pad and whatnot, and and it look just like, it looks like oil, it looks like acrylic and everything. And I'm more of an old school type. You got to feel it and everything. The plus side is that for us, I don't got to buy no more paint. If I mess up, what I'm saying, I can just erase it and whatnot and just do it again. And I'm not doubting other artists or anything like that. But some people old school say, "Oh, that's a cheat" and everything. But again, it's like, does anyone appreciate it? If they appreciate it, oh, that's what it is. Me personally, if it has something to do with art, I'm trying to learn it. So when I was in Atlanta, I wasn't going to go to school for it. I didn't take no more loans. Screw that. So what I do I go to Savannah School of Art. I go to the bookstore. I get the exact same book that the students get. They go to the classroom and learn it. I go home and and read it. The exact same thing, maybe at a slower pace and whatnot, but just knowing a different medium of art. The same way how my aunts try to pour into me for different mediums and whatnot. I do the exact same thing for with artworks now. With the art that I can use it for editing. Learning how to do that, editing, and back then you had to airbrush like old photos, black and white photos that's cracked and stuff like that. Now we learn how to do this and everything. So now I have to airbrush. I can do that for it digitally and whatnot. So it helps out. But like I said,